Hi, in this video we're going to look at the new fluid grid layouts that are incorporated in Dreamweaver CS6. These are great ways to create websites that that will adapt based on the screen size. So you can create a site that looks good on a desktop, laptop, tablet, smartphone, you name it. So the first thing I do when I create a site is I create a folder on my desktop to decide where I want to store my files, and then in Dreamweaver I create a new site. So I'm going to call this fluid example, and I've already created the folder right here, and you'll notice that I've already created within it a folder for my CSS and images. So these are just things I tend to always do, and the servers I'm going to leave blank for now. I'm going to hit OK. So then on this layout, I'm going to click on Fluid Grid Layout. If for some reason you've checked not to see this welcome screen, you can always go to New Fluid Grid Layout. And so you'll see that it gives you some basic options, but it describes the way that this is set up. And so right now it is set up for HTML5, so I'm going to leave that, and it's going to do an external style sheet, which is what I want. So I'm going to hit Create, and it prompts me where do I want to save my style sheet. And I'm going to rename this master, and I'm going to save this in my CSS folder. Okay, so I'm going to save this actually, and right away as index. And then it's saying, well, do you want to copy these dependent files, the boilerplate CSS, which helps clean things up, and the JavaScript? I'll say yes. Okay. And so if I actually go look in my folder, I'll be able to see some of this. But this is the basic layout. And so especially if you're new to this, and for many people this is a brand new feature in Dreamweaver CS6, you are going to be new to this, it would be helpful to spend some time looking through and seeing some of the things that they're doing in the code. You'll see that it's commented out heavily, and you'll notice the same thing with the CSS. And so there's just things that it just takes getting used to. And you'll even notice, for instance, in the screen how it has a whole block of code, and then the first part is for the mobile layout. And so mobile, table, desktop. Okay? So now that you just have a general idea, and it would behoove you, it'd be helpful to spend a little more time reading through and getting more comfortable with it. We're just going to jump right in with this. So notice that it says use the insert panel for additional grid fluid layouts. And it says note all layout divs must be inserted directly in the grid container. So if I click on this, I can see grid container. So it's saying everything needs to be put in there. So right now I'm going to have my mouse right in here, and I'm going to go to Insert, Layout Objects, Fluid Grid, and I'm going to call this one Navigation, and I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to do the same thing, and this one I'm going to call Body. And then this first one that's called Layout I'm going to call Banner. But what I need to do to make this happen is I have to go here and rename this, and you'll notice that it's actually in 3 places, and so it's something that you have to be careful of. So I'm just going to actually do this, a find and replace, and everywhere there's that I want it to be this. Okay, and so it's done it 3 times. That looks good. So now what I've done is I have a place to put my banner image. In this case, I'm gonna basically create a portfolio type site, and I'm gonna just put my name there for now. And then you'll notice that here I have a place for my navigation, and so I'm just gonna start by typing in home space, and I'll call this artifacts. It's too small, I can't even tell if I'm spelling right. And resume. So you can think of other things that a portfolio site would have, especially if it was based for instance, if you're in your graduate studies and you're creating it, you might have things that refer to coursework. You might have other examples. You might have a showcase. I can even show my example from, I got more than one example, but I'm going to first show an example where this one's from, gosh, 2002 maybe? I think it was when I created it, and it says 2003. And so this has a couple different examples, and this is really old. And I'm going to pull up another one here that shows you a newer version of a portfolio that I did for a position where, alright, and so this one's a lot simpler. It's just a one-page design that kind of gives different examples of stuff. And so this is another kind of focus. So the idea is there's no set way, but right now I'm trying to show you how you would just get going on this and make some changes. Alright, so we'll call this home. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to HTML here so I can, because I know there I want to make sure that is a heading 1. And my navigation I'm going to leave as is. Actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make that a heading 1, and I'll make this a heading 2. Alright, so now that I've done this, I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to start doing some basic things to this page, but they're things that then I'm going to have to test to see how it looks like across. I'm going to actually do a save all of the layouts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, I'm going to click on this, my banner, and I'm going to basically click on the edit rule, and I'm going to add a background. So in this case I'm just going to add a dark blue. I'm going to hit apply, hit OK. Now if you notice that if I go look at my CSS, we can see the background colors there, but I don't see it down here, and so it inherits it, and that works fine as long as you don't want changes to happen. Okay, but let's pull this up in Safari. You can't see the text, we'll fix that, but the idea is that no matter the width, it still works and it inherits those styles. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go banner, and if I wanted to actually have multiple fonts types, I would just style the H1, but for now I'm going to do here, and I'm going to go to type, and I'm going to have my banner be, let's think we'll choose this. We'll have it be 36 and white. Okay, so now let's preview this and see what this looks like. Okay, so that's really big, and that might not be exactly how big I want to go, but I think to illustrate the point, it kind of works, but I'm still going to tone it down a little because as I see it there, it looks a little much. Excuse me. So I'm going to change this to, we'll say 28. Now, but what I do know is I know that when I go to a, so this is actually the first one's on my mobile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start where if someone's on a mobile, I want this to be 18 pics. But if someone is on a tablet, I think all of a sudden we can crank this up to 24. But if they're actually on a laptop or desktop, I think it would look ideal at 30. So hopefully it makes sense what I'm doing. So we're going to preview this. Okay, so this shows you what it looks like, but notice how when it goes to the tablet size it gets smaller, and then see what happens when it gets to the mobile side. And you could even say the mobile could be even smaller. So I'm going to go back up to this, and I'm going to change that to 16. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add padding. 2 pics. We'll do actually padding top. We'll add 5 pics. Padding bottom. 2 pics. We'll save all. And actually, as I'm playing with this, I'm going to actually just get rid of the H1. So let's hit save all, and we'll come back and take a look at this in a second to see but I think it'd just be easier to illustrate this point. Alright, so you can see it changing size, but it's not as dramatic now that I got rid of that H1. So what I'll do is we're going to keep this at 18 for the mobile, and we will make it font weight, we'll make bold. And what I can do is I can just copy this and go down, right, find my other banner. And so in this case I already had that, so I'm going to make this, we'll say 26. We'll do 32. I'm just going to do a search to make sure there isn't an H1 here that I'm not aware of. And there's not, so that's looking good. I'm going to save all, and I'm going to preview it. You notice that it's not a real drastic, it's real subtle, but it works, I think, right? And so then I'm going to do a couple more things here. So basically going to look at padding. We'll do 10 for the right and left. We're going to hit OK and OK. Alright, so now we're going to work on our nav. And so navigation selected. We're going to click on that. And we can be less specific. We're not going to have more than one navigation. So in this case, it wants to know where do I want to actually add it. I want to add it to the master, and I didn't pay attention before. I hope I got that right before. And so in this case, I can play with the font some more if I want the type. It's more right here. I want to focus on the size. And once again, you'll play with this and see which one makes sense. And padding, so I don't want it the same, but I do want right and left to be 10. And actually, I'm going to put 10 for all right now, but I might change it as I go. So I hit OK. And the last thing actually that I forgot to do is I'm just going to add a background color. So I hit the pencil, go background, I'm just going to add a light gray. Okay, so I'm going to preview this. Alright, so you can start seeing it. I've not added the links to it yet, and so I think the font, I think I could go even a bit bigger, so I'm actually going to go back to my banner, and I'm just going to crank it up once more. So font size, I'm going to decide to do 22. We'll do 36. Okay, so now this is the body of the page, and this is basically where you're going to put, so I'm going to make sure I see where I'm at over here because I have an H2 tag, so I put a little letter there just so I can, and this is where the body font is. So right now I'm not so worried about what all this text is. You can use one of those tools to put in dummy text, and Dreamweaver now might even add something like that. But you know, but you get the idea. The idea is just to create the illusion of text here. All right. So now you'll notice that this width, this has a 10 pixels in the other. So we're going to go down to here. We're going to do the same thing. So with the body selected, we're going to hit edit rule, and we're going to go down to, right now, we'll just see what that looks like. Okay, hit OK. And I'm going to do another thing with this body. I'm going to add a background. Actually, cancel, pencil. I try to keep my code as clean as I can. I don't spend probably enough time on ensuring it's clean, but I added a white background because now I'm going to add a background to the body itself. So I'm hitting the edit rule, And because I'm basically already using this fluid grid template, a lot of the code's here, so I'm just really adjusting what's already been here. So black. So now let's preview. And what you see is we could probably end up having more white space around the name, but you'll see that what it looks like versus as it changes. And this black might be a little too dark for this background. I mean, you could definitely, I'm going to do two things here, because I'm not a color expert, but I'm going to actually change that to this blue that I had used earlier. I'm going to hit apply, and then I'm going to actually change my banner background, and I'm going to go with something a little more shocking to have it just stand out. So this is some Bronco colors we have going on here. Blue and orange. Alright, so, and I decided after looking at that, that definitely my banner I could deal with having a little bit more white space around it. So, when I click on this banner, edit. So the white space I added, basically I'm going to change, I'm going to add 10 up top, and I will add 10 at bottom just to see what this looks like. I'm going to actually change the top one to 20. I'm going to change my float to right. Okay. You notice the text did not change on the float, but everything else looks good. So let's take a preview. Now, it's a little strong, that orange. It kind of really pops on you, especially with that white text. But you could start seeing, so there's something goes funky there that would want to look at. But everything else is looking pretty good. So I'm going to do a couple more little tweaks here. Body, I'm going to go a little darker. Okay, clicking on the banner. And you notice the banner didn't keep. Let's go look at this top one here. And so I got all kinds of things going on here, and so you could definitely see how this would be causing some of the problems. So float right, background color, width, and so the padding. So let's go down here and look at this other banner and make sure that we don't have anything. So we're just going to float that to the right. And it's not inheriting all this stuff down that it really should, but right now I'm just gonna bring this down, copy it, and you could adjust. You could decide on the PC or on a desktop version that you want more white space up top, but that as it goes down you don't, or as it goes down. So basically, as someone uses a smartphone, you could have less and less padding up top. Alright. So I still have to figure out this one little bit to find out what's going on, because you'll notice that it carries on throughout. So there's something wrong there that I'll have to check out. But right now, basically I've created a site that looks pretty good. I can now start creating my body text, putting in my images. I can start creating my navigation. And all of a sudden I have a site that is will adapt to whatever device that my users are using. So what I'm going to do to help figure out this last bit, I'm going to 100%, go in code view and clean up my code a little and start seeing what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to copy this padding and I'm going to add it to both the navigation and the body. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. Okay, it's not quite there. I actually want it to float left, so I think that actually might be what did it. Before, because I want my name to float differently than alright, there we go. And that did it. So basically what I was trying to do, and it's always bad when you have to watch me futz through this, but I added this h1 tag, and what I was trying, and then I got rid of it. The nice thing about having this h1 tag, and I'm going to go less specific, is this is where I can actually sit here and make sure it's in master. It is when I wanted one thing to float and I didn't want the other thing to float. So just like that, let's and there you see that effect. Now what I want to do is basically some of those same styles I added before, I'm going to try to add back. So under my banner, if you remember, let's go totally in this, I added a number of these things such as the color of the font, the size, etc. that was basically there because I wanted to influence what it looked like in that banner. So in this case, I'm going to cut that and go all the way down. And notice I could put this under each one, because you notice how some of these aren't included, navigation, and so there's a few things that would need to be tweaked here. So let's preview this and take a look. So you see this is closer to, so you see how the size doesn't change, and it's because, and you'll notice that, that's how there's that float there, so there's one that floats I didn't fix. And so what I'm going to do is go back to my code here. You're going to go 100%. And basically what I want is I want this banner, first of all, under each. And so this is just something you want to be careful with. So I'm going to add it there. Then I'm going to add it here. And there it is here at the bottom. Alright, the same way this navigation, it should be under each, so let me just double check and make sure it is. It is, so what I'm going to do is delete this one that doesn't belong here. And this banner actually needs to be above this enclosing bracket. I'm going to clean up my code. And so this is where for the desktop, I'm going to say 32. Actually, I had it as 36, right? So I'm going to actually just cut this part out, put it back in. I'm going to look here. I'm going to see what I did here. And hopefully this makes sense. It all came down to me wanting to float. If you didn't care about floating, then it wouldn't matter. But in this case, I'm just trying to clean it up, and I'm taking you along for the ride. Okay, I think we got it there. We're going to save this all. We're going to preview. So you notice that by including the nav in there, we definitely lost some of the background color, so we want to go through and look at that. And so I go to Master CSS and I'm going to start up top. So notice how the background color, and that was because I had added it at one point, and when I added it, it was not included in this. So we're going to add that. We're going to also add a color of white. And then for this, rather than this color of white up here with my name, let's see what it would look like if we actually just added this blue, really dark blue. We're going to do a save all. Going to preview what this looks like. Hit refresh. Alright, so the gray looks good. The font's a little small, so would want to address that. Still need to look for, you see how we got to make sure that color's there, because I think I kind of like the dark color. And then want to still look for this float right. So I'm going to, so I just want to check my banner. Float left. Float left, and then it's this last one, I'm pretty sure that's doing it. Nope. It's right there. So what we'll have to look at is, that banner. Gotta make sure we have the same 2010-10-10. Okay, don't see anything yet, but we do know that in navigation we want to up that size. So we'll see what that looks like. Probably be a size smaller. And then we also know in the banner when we add the color, because we have it down here in these other spots, it wasn't cascading down. And you could even just plan on trying, if the only thing you're going to change, let's see what this looks like. So we just want really the font size to change. We're going to do a save all, preview. Okay, so big, small. So it doesn't go that much smaller between the tablet and that, but everything else is looking pretty good. So let's take a look and see one last time what's going on there. So what we're, looks like one of the things we'll do is we'll clean up the code. We'll also go to Command Clean Up HTML, see if it catches anything. It says we're good there. It says I'm troubleshooting this. I can see that I have my padding here, it's 10 pixels, 10 pixels. but I don't see padding here for my banner. So let's take a look at that top one and see if that's possible. And it is. So we're going to go down to one of these others. Here it goes. So notice how we put that navigation there and we'd added it, the body there, and then this. So what we're going to do is add that right here. Okay, there we go. And check the font size between my first one for my H1s at a 20, and this goes to a 22. So I'm going to actually change this to a 24 and make this 20, and hopefully we'll see that change a little more. I'm going to refresh. You see it change based on, and so this is basically, adaptive design, fluid grid layout, and the idea is once you have your basic setup like here, and it took me a little longer than it probably should have, I would then do a save as, artifacts, so create my artifacts page, and I'm going to call it artifacts. I'm going to do the same thing and create one, save as resume. Add the title there. And you can always do this different orders, but what I'm going to do here is start adding my links. That's my home page. Artifacts, resume, and then I'm just going to repeat those steps for each one of these. I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to preview again. So overall looks pretty good, and you notice how it adjusts pretty good. Then I would need to just go through and add content, and more specifically, you're going to really need to keep adjusting your styles to make sure that it looks good on all three displays. Another thing to point out is that you have this thing here from multi-screen preview, and you see how it will show you what it looks like on multi-screen. So especially when you're using the fluid grid layout and you want to see what it looks like, this is a great way to do that as well. So hopefully, even though I stumbled through this a little, it makes sense and you can start seeing the value in using a fluid grid layout. And once you understand the main three sections of the fluid grid layout and how it cascades the styles through and how you can adjust styles based on the device, you should see that it starts making sense, and you can leverage your other knowledge of HTML, CSS, and Dreamweaver to create reflexive design, adaptable design, fluid grid systems that can really adapt to any screen. And so rather than creating mobile websites, you create one site that will work across all devices. Thanks.